your mind.
Good afternoon and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And myself, Stephen George. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
It must be the weather.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good afternoon. It must be the weather. The sun's shining and it's nice and warm.
It is a beautiful day. Absolutely fantastic day.
Brilliant day.
Yeah.
And yesterday was pretty good as well. I have to say, yesterday was pretty good. Yeah. So maybe we're seeing bits of the summer coming in. Finally.
We might get one after all.
We might get a few days of it. You never know. Welcome on board to OYM Radio. We have a few things to be talking about tonight, a few things that might interest you and get your brain ticking. Now, we had planned to have a guest on, Neil from Lay Litigation Ireland, but unfortunately we got a last-minute call from Neil saying that he won't be able to make it due to a family emergency and a visit to the hospital. So we contacted Stephen from Integrity Ireland because Stephen's going to be on in a few weeks' time anyway. And Stephen was kind enough to give us the time to come on tonight. So we're going to be talking to Stephen from Integrity Ireland because there's an awful lot of things going on with Integrity Ireland and court cases and a number of bits and pieces of paperwork that's gone through, which Stephen is going to tell us all about. Very interesting information. And to be honest with you, the time is quite right because Stephen and his team are really pushing the boundaries when it comes to the legal side of things to a level that there might be how would you say, incarceration at some point, maybe, we don't know, but we'll talk to Stephen about that and he'll let us know what's going on there. But before we carry on, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Yes, as usual, the communication channels are.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Thanks, Mary. Yes, the phone number is 046 927 1212. If you want to call in from outside the Republic of Ireland, the phone number is 00353 469 271212. We also have the chat room on the website, so if you want to check that out, navigate your way to oymradio.com and you will see the link there for the chat room. You can log in there, say hi to everyone that's already in there, nice friendly bunch of people, and you can stick up some questions up there for our guest this evening, or just have a bit of banter among yourselves. We also monitor People's Internet Radio chat room as well, so hi to everyone that's logged in there. We also have the anti-social media for your pleasure. It's on the website, the link there. Again, it's oymradio.com. You will see the Facebook link. Just click on that and you can check us out and see what's happening on the anti-social media. We also have the YouTube channel. The link is also on the website, as is a link for the TuneIn Radio link application. Sorry, the TuneIn Radio application. That's a free application where you can check us out. You can listen to us on the Android device and the iPhone, the iPads and all those fancy schmangle devices. Alan.
Brilliant, Steve. Okay, we're going to be talking about something called the Mandela effect in a few minutes. And we want to get your thinking caps on. And no cheating on the internet either. This is just purely a mind thing. Okay? And we'll be talking about that in a few minutes. But before we start, Steve's going to kick us off.
Yes, I'm going to kick him right now. Where it hurts. We have some information from disclose.tv in relation to Putin. Seemingly, Putin pushes to collapse the US dollar in May 2016. This collapse will be global and it will bring down not only the dollar but all other fiat currencies as they are fundamentally no different. The collapse of currencies will lead, it says, to the collapse of all paper assets. The repercussions to this will have incredible results worldwide. Now, of course, this was kind of supposed to, the ball on this one was supposed to start rolling on the 28th of May. Now, it's now the 29th of May. We haven't heard too much going on.
But we'll find out because Russia today have just released footage of Putin and the Prime Minister of Greece, Alexei
Sale.
For want of the real name.
Yeah.
And he's been signing documentations and contracts between Greece and Russia. So does that mean that Greece has now bailed out of the EU and going with Putin and the Brexit banking system? And if that's the case, then there's going to be other countries around Europe wanting to do the same thing. So this could be the start of it. So when Putin did state the 28th of May, he obviously knew about this was going to be happening, these contracts and deals with Greece. So maybe this could be the start of something. So keep an eye out for that. It's actually on YouTube.
Well, it'll be quite interesting if it is, because if Greece are opting out of the EU just a couple of weeks before the UK actually go to the polls for the referendum to see if they want to stay or go, it's, I tell you, if Greece are already going, that might kind of just give the UK food for thought.
Exactly. Steve's going to tell us about the OYM supporters group.
Yes, the OYM supporters group are a lovely bunch of people. We're going to be organising the first OYM supporters group get together. That's going to be happening shortly. So if you haven't joined and you have the fluid belief system that we spoke of, if you have that box is checked and you want to meet some nice people, if, as I say, with the fluid belief system, you have to kind of check that out first and see where we're coming from. If that is you, then you're more than welcome along. Sign up. You can see the link on the website there, so you can join up there. We're going to be having them. We will see you at the meeting. For our international listeners, this will be a Skype hookup, but we are going to have a real face-to-face meetup as well.
Yeah. So that'll be on the cards.
Yeah. So if you haven't joined, do join. Again, this is not This was kind of an idea that was brought to OYM from one of our listeners, Chris, and we think it's a good idea. Chris was really excited about this, so he wanted us to get this going, and we did. So who knows where it's going to lead? But it's nothing to do with our egos. We're not egotistical.
No, we thought it probably wasn't something that we wanted to do, but Chris kind of gave us a good argument for it. So we said, okay, let's see where we go from there. So we'll see what happens anyway. Right. Now, there's a number of people on the internet talking about this thing called the Mandela effect. Okay. Now, it's quite interesting. Now, is it a psyop? Is it another rabbit hole they want us to go down? I don't know. But, I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay? And then at the end of the show, after the interview, I'm going to go and speak about these questions, right? So don't say anything till after the interview.
Shh, nothing, not a word.
Mum's the word, right? But basically, the Mandela effect is a term for where a group of people all misremember the same detail, event, or physicality. It is named after the instance of which a large group of people all shared the same memory that Nelson Mandela died prior to his actual 2013 death, usually sometime in the 1980s. So basically, the Mandela effect that it's just something that as fact. But when you go back and check it, it's changed. And there's a number of examples of this on the internet. So I don't want anybody going to the internet. If you want to be fair, just use your mind, right? To both chat rooms, People's Internet Radio and OYM chat room, right? Use your mind. Don't look at the internet and just think about this, all right? So here's a few questions, right? The movie Snow White, okay? Now, when the witch goes up and she stands in front of the mirror, she says something, right? Now, I want you to write it down or just say to yourself what the words she says. So the Wicked Witch, or whatever you ever want to call her, stands in front of the mirror and she says something, right? Now, I want you to have a think about what she says, right? Now, there is a program with 4 girls in New York, and Carrie Fisher is one of the girls anyway. These 4 girls talking about the socialites and the social life and everything else, right? So it's a well-known TV program with 4 girls in it, right? You might know it, Steve, because
I don't.
You don't watch TV. But you know the program. It's So if you know the program, I want you to think of the name of that program, right? The 4 girls. There's Blonde, Red. There's an Infomaniac and somebody else. There's 4 girls are in it. Okay, you know what the program is I'm talking about. Okay. So I want you to think of the title of that program, okay? And we'll come back to it after the interview. Now, another couple of things, right? Forrest Gump, okay? The famous line in Forrest Gump where he's sitting on the bench and he turns around to the lady and says something, right? You know the famous line?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I want you to have a think about what that line is, right? Right. I'll be asking you after this, right? After the interview, I'll ask, right? Right, and the last one, okay, is when in Star Wars and Darth Vader has just chopped Luke's arm off and Luke is hanging on for dear life and he says something like, blank, I am your father, right? So what is the blank? Blank, I am your father, okay? So there's 4 things that I want you to just sit back and think about. Don't Google them, because it'll just spoil it, right? It'll spoil the idea, and then I'll explain more after the interview. But this is called the Mandela effect, and apparently some people are saying it's, open to, discussion, really. But basically some people are saying there has been a dimensional shift and there has been changes taken place. And stuff that we know as fact, when we go back and look at it, we think, but no, I'm positive it was X, Y, and Z, right? This is called the Mandela effect. And it's happening everywhere when you keep going back or looking at things, and not just stupid kind of TV programs or movies. Actually, physicality, just things like land masses and movements of land, and you think, but that was never there before. Where did that island come from? That wasn't there before. So some people think CERN is one cause of it. There's some dimensional shift has taken place, or there's been an energy change somewhere. We all talk about the energy change, but something apparently has happened, and they're saying that this is what's called the Mandela effect. Is it a psyop? I don't know, but let's find out at the end, after the interview. I'll ask you these questions again, okay? And I'll ask Steve, and the ones that Steve knows, I'll get him to say it. And you can after the interview, when I'm talking about it, you can type the answer in the chat room, right? But I'll wait till after the interview, and then I'll put it out there and see what the people on the chat room type in, and we'll just see where we go from there, okay? Right, okay. So we have Stephen to bring in a few minutes. Let's just quickly do our week and take it from there. Steve, how's your week?
Honestly, not much happening in my week at all. It's been a very, very busy week work-wise. As I was just saying to Alan before I come up this evening, we kind of done the family outing today because we haven't done that as a family in a while. And I don't know if I'm guessing every family is the same, where you attempt to have as a family outing and it turns into the family row. So we done that today. But yeah,
the outing and the row.
Oh, both of them, yeah, yeah. And in that order as well. So that was kind of my day. What else on the agenda? Really, I haven't been watching many videos. I haven't watched really any videos at all this week. I haven't caught up on any alternative information, to be completely honest. My daughter, actually, she was tidying out, doing a clear out of her room, and she was actually big into, if anyone remembers, Jedward. She was kind of big into them. And there was a pile of stuff outside our door last night in a box, and it was all the Jedward paraphernalia and memorabilia. And I remember looking at that thinking, wow, she's grown up now, because, that the posters were on our wall up to, well, a couple of weeks back, or a couple of months back.
So Jedward's gone now? Well,
the posters are off the wall. Okay. All the memorabilia was in a little basket. So yeah, I just kind of looked at it and I went, wow. You kind of, I felt old actually then, because I realised she's grown up. But she did actually come down today. My father-in-law was in the house, and she came down today and she had $1 bill, and she wanted to know, is this real? And I said, it is, yeah. And my father-in-law, he had a look and he said, oh yeah, that's genuine. And she said, are you sure? And we said, yeah, 100% sure. Why? And she turned over the back of the $1 bill, and you had like the pyramid with the all-seeing eye, the capstone raised above the rest of the pyramid. And she going, because that symbol is on the $1 bill. And she goes, what? I mean, I only thought this was, a symbol that, people kind of in the alternative media would kind of know about. And my father-in-law looked at him and went, no, that's the symbol for them. The people who control the world. You know my father-in-law. Yeah. He's not really open at all.
No, he's not. So that was a bit of a shocker.
It was even more of a shocker when he said to me, yeah, that's the people who run the world, who control the world, the Illuminati. I nearly dropped out of me standing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, because I've often used to shoot the breeze with him about different things that we would have spoke about on OYM. And he was never open at all. So I don't know where this happened. So maybe there is a shift going on. Maybe there is this Mandela effect that you spoke of. So we might have some more interesting conversations now that fact that that he's kind of open to this sort of thing. Brilliant. Anyway, I'm waffling now, because my week was a boring week. I got the grass cut. That was the highlight of my week. I got the bloody grass cut. How's your week?
Okay, just a couple of things as usual for me. Right, I ordered a couple of bits from the States. And I was charged a luxury tax, as we all know, 23%. And I spoke to the postman, and I said, why are we being charged 23%? what am I getting for that 23%? And he said, well, what you're getting is penalised. He said, because you're not buying it in Ireland, and because you don't buy it in Ireland, you have to pay 23% luxury tax. So again, it's another tax scam by the government just to make money and just to penalise you. You don't get nothing for it. It's just another bloody tax. So
even if the item that you want to purchase is not available in Europe,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If it's not available in Europe, they don't say, well, you can't get it in Europe, but you're still going to be penalised. It's just the way it is. It's another scam. And I've just, over the years, I've purchased a couple of things from the States because you can't get them over here. And sometimes you're lucky it gets through, but apparently they're checking everything now, rather than now and again. Sometimes a few things would get through, but now they're checking everything, especially if it's over €100. They will definitely be checking it. And the other thing was that I've been doing a lot of YouTubing and Facebooking and reading and talking to people about certain things going on nationally and globally, and I'm seeing a pressure cooker going off with the people. But I feel that the governments want something to happen as they can call martial law. They just seem to be blatantly causing upset among the people to get their goal or agenda in place. Now, we've heard a lot of things about some things that are coming down the line, and if there's going to be certain weather conditions or patterns changing, and things are going to get worse, and they need to have control of the people, the best way to do it is to upset the people, get them to a stage where they'll retaliate, and then they'll say, oh, well, we have to bring in martial law, and the thing like Clare, the eviction in Clare apparently there was army people, allegedly, doing double jobbing for the evictions, and obviously who were the two guys that jumped in the police car that was there? You have to ask yourself these questions. Why are these guys doing what, why did that go on? So we'll get more into that anyway. We are planning to speak to PJ from the Anti-Eviction Task Force in a few weeks' time anyway. So we'll speak to PJ about that. But great job, Brian, and all the guys down there stopping that eviction taking place. And the story behind it, the poor guy, the bank gave him the money when they shouldn't have done, because he didn't have the finances. But again, they just threw out the money and they just want to repossess the house. It's just ridiculous, But that's it anyway. So I just see, based on all the stuff I'm watching on YouTube, I just see the pressure cooker building up with everybody getting angry, and we just have to be.
Honestly, though, I mean, based on the interview that you turned me onto in relation to Ben Gilroy, from what Ben says, and I have to agree with him, I think we are a Gambia nation, and I think the government really, I think honestly they can do what they like.
Yeah.
I don't think the masses are actually going to blow up like a pressure cooker.
Well,
I think they'll just keep bending over and taking it.
No, in Ireland they won't, but in France it's going off.
Oh, in France?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a different kettle of fish there.
Yeah. No, in other countries it's going off, but in Ireland, no. We'll just sit back and go, sure, what can you do? Stick on the kettle there, Mary.
I'll be gosh and be gore, as Ben says. Yeah,
that's basically what's going to happen. Because we've lost that fight. Well, not the Irish people that we were around in 1916, trust me. Not what we've seen and experienced anyway. But there are people out there, I will say there are a handful, not everybody, but there are a handful of people who are good people and who are doing as much as they can, and fair play to the people who are doing that. That's all we'll say. And just talking about people who are getting involved and really doing the solid work on the legal side. Our guest Stephen from Integrity Ireland. Good evening, Stephen. By the way, there's a little delay between Stephen and ourselves, so just allow for that. But good evening, Stephen. How are you?
Hello, Alan. Nice to hear from you.
Listen, thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate it. I know it's a last-minute thing, and you're a very busy man, so I do appreciate that you've come on the show. And we had a show planned anyway in a few weeks' time, so it ties in anyway that we wanted you to come on because you said there's so much going on. You're bringing so many kind of cases now to court, and you had an incident there where the judge actually left the court. And I think you put in your own judge, and there's been some kind of kickback from that. But do you want to, for people who haven't heard of Integrity Ireland, do you want to just give them a quick heads up, and then you can tell us what's been going on?
Sure, Alan. Thanks. First of all, I'm very happy to help out any way I can, because with the reluctance of the mainstream media to cover some very important cases and issues that are ongoing. We're relying heavily, of course, on people like yourself to get the message out. So anyway, all the niceties aside, The question was to describe what Integrity Ireland is. Well, a short explanation of who and what Integrity Ireland is that we are a group that was formed out of a small group of people came together in 2012, and we shared our experiences with each other, and we were each horrified and appalled at the abject failures of the system, to put it mildly, in defending our constitutional rights and delivering us justice. Now, we all had various different stories. I won't go into those right now, but some were more shocking than others. But in every case, authority figures in particular were directly involved in what we now see as criminal activity. Now, at the time, we were trying to write it all off as just failures or lapses or inefficiencies or incompetence even. But the deeper and deeper we've gotten into this, the more obvious it's become that we're dealing with systemic criminal activity in some of the highest offices in the land. And it's a massive lie that's been perpetrated on the Irish people. But the Integrity Ireland organisation at the moment is a very loosely affiliated group of concerned citizens. We are doing our best to help each other in the face of wrongdoing, particularly by authority figures, and particularly in the Department of Justice, the Garda Síochána, the legal profession, and the Irish courts. And the reason that we're focusing in on those particular areas is it's a very common sense reason, which I'm sure most of your listeners will be able to identify with. Anybody who has any sort of a real problem in their lives and who needs to go to the authorities to have it sorted out is going to end up dealing with in Garda Síochána, with lawyers and barristers, and with the courts, and in some cases also with the Ministry of Justice, because of the abject failings of some of these institutions. So our argument is, well, look, if these institutions can't be trusted, then we are in some serious, serious trouble here, and something needs to be done about it. Unfortunately, having gone to all of the so-called statutory oversight bodies, for example, the Law Society Complaints Department, the Garda Síochána Ombudsman Commission, and even the Ministry of Justice and their farce of a review panel that was supposed to be looking into hundreds of serious complaints of Garda malpractice. Having done all that, we now realise that this is a completely closed shop. There is nobody working in these institutions that is allowed to genuinely go after malefactors and wrongdoers who are in senior positions of power and authority in the state. And as a result, we're being thwarted at every step in our efforts to get justice. So, to sort of simply summarise what Integrity Ireland is, we are a group of many thousands now, I might add, spread all over Ireland and further afield, who endeavour to help each other, particularly in dealing with the Gardaí lawyers and the courts. And it's focusing a lot now dealing with issues in the courts and trying to educate people as to when they are being wrongly treated, where the wool has been pulled over their eyes, where officials, including judges and some of our most senior judges even, are doing things that are strictly against the rules, against the law, against the Constitution. And there seems to be no way of protecting people from this. And later on in the programme, I hope I'll get an opportunity to explain some of the tactics that we are employing, which at the moment seem to be rocking the legal establishment and the judicial corridors of power, right to their core.
It must be very frustrating, Stephen, because I know you're doing your best to apply the law, which is there for us as well as them. And they, because there's double standards, they are just blatantly, in a lot of cases, ignoring you following the actual law. So yes, that must be very frustrating. And it goes to show the double standards, that it's one rule for them, another rule for us.
You're exactly right, Alan. Now, it is immensely frustrating, and I'll hold my hand up and say that there have been times in the past 4 or 5 years where I have asked myself the serious question, is this all worth it? And how much more energy can I put into this? How much more of my personal resources, my time, my money, before it all just comes tumbling down. Because you're absolutely right. There is a systematic structure which is designed to thwart any sincere citizen's attempts at getting justice, especially in cases where agents of the state are involved. However, it's not all doom and gloom, because we have uncovered a process, and I'm in the business at the moment of writing a short book about this process, and I say like a guidance manual would be a more accurate description. And we're hopefully I'm going to have this finished in a couple of days, and it'll be out there and available to people to help them press this process. But it's a process which is free, it's fast, and it's absolutely effective, because it allows you or I to walk straight into a district court and prosecute any other citizen, anyone, if we can prove that they've committed crimes against us. And in many cases, the sort of crimes we're talking about now are interfering with the administration of justice, perjury, fraud, misconduct in public office, and so on and so forth.
Okay, would that apply to Gardai and solicitors as well?
Yes.
Okay, because we know that that happens quite a lot. From what I've heard from, the experiences that you've had and other people we've heard had conversations with, that there seems to be an awful lot of malpractice regarding solicitors, and the way the Gardai don't seem to understand the law at all, or else they just do I'm just doing my job. Especially what happened in County Clare, where, I mean, I'm sure you've seen that.
Yes, I did. I was, first of all, I was astounded. I actually thought for a little while that it was a setup. I thought this is so blatantly wrong and improper. And the attitude of the guard in question, the main guard there, and his arrogance and his his brass-necked refusal to answer the questions, legitimate questions being put to him. The fact that you had masked men, paramilitary style thugs, or at least that's how they presented themselves. They are in support of our so-called police force. I mean, it was outrageous, and then to see that the car that they'd arrived in wasn't taxed, and then they'd covered up the number plate, and they were allowed to just drive off the premises, even with Gardai standing present. Again, you're right when it comes to these double standards. It's really shocking what is going on. But you mentioned in the introduction there, Alan, the issue of the occasion when a judge exited the courtroom. I want to sort of touch on that just briefly, because, interestingly, myself and my friend Colin, who were the main speakers in the courtroom that day, when Judge Kevin Kilrain abandoned the court, basically, and tried to continue in his private chambers. And we all saw the video of it. There was uproar by the public at some of the stunts that he was trying to pull on the day, and they were unlawful. What he was doing was inconsistent with the law. It was inconsistent with any concept of natural justice. It was biased, and arguably it was Judge Kilrain and some of the Gardai present and whatever officials were setting off fire alarms in the background. They're the ones that were creating a scenario that was likely to lead to a breach of the peace. But now they're trying to charge Colin and I with that offence. They lodged the papers on the last possible day they could do so, and somewhat ironically, the Garda Sergeant who was trying to prosecute us was one of the Garda Sergeants we had placed under citizen's arrest a few weeks earlier, with no result whatsoever from the authorities. So it's quite a convoluted mess, but I see it as another golden opportunity which has been handed to us on a plate by authorities who are now basically running around in circles, the whole hullabaloo about circling the wagons. I think they're crashing into each other, and there's horses running left, right and centre, and there's people getting injured. They don't know what's going on anymore. But it's necessary. We have to do this, because our justice system in this country is an absolute farce. Not only from the Minister of Justice down, and you'll notice that I'm not making any apologies anymore about naming people, because it is time. It is time that we denounce them and that they are held. they have to be held to account, even if it's only the embarrassment of being talked about on social media and having their names and their activities exposed. That's just a starting point. But we're pressing now at the moment. Our big push with Integrity Ireland at the moment is to try to convince ordinary people who, let's say, for example, have been assaulted by a guard at one of these water meters, or who has been defrauded by a solicitor who has forged a land deed or something like that. And I'm talking about relatively common offences here. Or who has been mistreated by a judge in the courts, as against the Constitution and the law, and has been denied their fundamental right to speak or whatever. Well, what we're saying to people now is, well, how much longer are you going to put up with this? We're going to show you a process which is free, which is quick. Well, it should be quick. It's free, it's quick, it's efficient, and you can use the law to prosecute these people in your own name in the courts, and no one can stop you. Even the office of the DPP can't stop you. It's a fundamental right. It's enshrined in common law going back to 1851. And to make matters worse for the rogue authorities, and again, I must emphasise, of course there are decent people working in institutions of the state, and there's probably a great many of them. Unfortunately, they don't tend to rise to the top. Those lofty heights seem to be reserved for those who are willing to compromise themselves to support wrongdoers in the institutions of the state. But the point I'm trying to make is that there is a procedure now where we can prosecute people in our own names. We can actually push to have criminal convictions lodged against agents of the state, including guards, solicitors, lawyers, judges, court officers of the court and other officials who are wronging us. All we have to do is a little bit of education, understand when a crime has been committed, and just refuse point blank. You don't go to the guards about it. You don't go, not anymore. Just go straight into district court and name that person. And whether it be the Minister of Justice, Frances Fitzgerald, for signing her name off to a document that contains lies and misleading statements in it in order to stop us impeaching a judge. Well, there's something that's likely to happen. But Colm and I are up next Wednesday in Castlebar Court. It'll probably be a relatively brief hearing. But the authorities are coming after us. No doubt somebody in some high office has decided that we can't let these people get away with this. But what they're missing is the fact that these people, i.e. us, the public, in Susan Denham's own words, and she's the Chief Justice of Ireland, in her own words, the people are the guardians of the Constitution, and it is the judge's duty to serve us.
Stephen,
now that's very interesting.
Stephen, I was just wondering there, we had Mark Stevens on the show in January, and we're going to do a pre-record with Mark shortly, and he's going to be on the show again on the pre-record. And Mark has had some brilliant success with the whole jurisdiction. So, if you go to court next week, for example, and you went into court and they said, and you start reading out things, would you not challenge their jurisdiction first and foremost? Because they can't proceed and go anywhere until they have jurisdiction.
Yes, there are some issues out there being talked about which I won't claim to have a comprehensive understanding of, and at the moment, there's even some of the members of Integrity Ireland have different views on things like sovereignty and jurisdiction of the courts. There's quite a big discussion about the fact that the court service, for example, is a corporation and it has a CEO. A CEO who used to be a county registrar. But obviously, as a corporation, their objective is to make money.
Yeah, well, of course, but the whole thing about the jurisdiction, and it's not, it's just a question you're asking, and, people like Bill Thornton, who's a legal eagle over in the States, he says the same thing, quite interesting information, and he represents a lot of people legally, and it's all about saying, well, show us the evidence, and Mark's argument is this, and Mark he's been successful on a number of cases, and there's been a case over here in Ireland where jurisdiction's being used, and a lot of people are beginning to say, well, hang on a minute, who gives you the right to dictate what I do. And so the whole idea of jurisdiction is when you go in, you ask for physical evidence to say, please provide me with physical evidence that just because I'm in the country of Ireland, that the laws apply to me. Okay? So that's all you're asking. You're saying, all I want is physical evidence, not circular logic, like the Bible's true because the Bible says it is. That's circular logic, right? But physical evidence. So if the sister turns around and says, well, the laws apply because we say so, that's circular logic. I'm sorry, but that's not physical evidence. And it's all about physical evidence, not hearsay, not opinions, but please provide me, and nobody can provide you, because when you go back to, and it's not getting into the kind of, the inverted commas, the freeman stuff, but it's more asking for physical evidence. You're not saying that you're not guilty, you're not saying, you're not guilty, or whatever the case is, but you're saying, well, before we actually start talking about the law and challenging their law, first show me where the law applies to me in the first place. And when you can show me that you have physical evidence to say you have jurisdiction over me, then we can proceed, and then we can argue the point with the law. So it gives you another barrier before you even get to arguing over what happened.
Well, interesting you bring this up, because if you see, I suppose in one sense we can't have it both ways either, Alan. I mean, we were in the court trying to use the court system to prosecute a Garda sergeant and a county registrar. That was the incident on the day. It was in whenever it was, September last year. And while we were trying to advance that process lawfully and properly, various agents of the state, including this particular judge and another 2 High Court judges, plus the guards that were present and a couple of solicitors that are being engaged by the state, they all basically conspired with each other to bring about the collapse of a legitimate process that we had initiated in good faith. And when I say they colluded and conspired, they not only, it's one thing, colluding, putting your heads together to come up with an idea, but colluded and then came up with an illegitimate idea, which is we're still sort of arguing about it in various courts. Colm was in the High Court yesterday, I believe, or Friday, sorry, and he's trying to get a judicial review of some decisions that were made. And our tactic at the moment is this. I sort of argue, well, look, every society has to have some rules and regulations. Otherwise, there would be anarchy. Yeah. So, given that we have some rules and regulations, when you read down through the list of statutes, acts and laws and statutes and the various crimes that are considered, the government declares this is a crime or that will be a crime, and if you drive too fast, that's a criminal offence, and so on and so forth. When you look at the list, they're not that bad. They're not that unreasonable. I mean, some are a bit unsavoury. We don't particularly like them, the taxes and all this sort of stuff. But basically, if the courts and the guards and the lawyers were actually abiding by the law themselves, we wouldn't have a problem. Our issue is the fact, as you said earlier in the programme, Alan, is that there's one law for them and another law for us. Yeah. And this is fundamentally unconstitutional, it is undemocratic and obviously unfair. But they won't verbally admit it. No one's going to write that down on a piece of paper and sign off and say, yes, it's true. But it is the reality. They will point to the statutes and the rules and the laws and the acts and the regulations, and they'll say, this is how we operate. But it's a lie. It's not how they operate.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's hypocrisy at the highest level. And when you have a judge, going against you for what you did, Stephen, or allegedly did, I mean, he's going to submit that paperwork to another judge. So there's a conflict of interest straight away. So that's the state going against you, and the state is going to be there, going to make a judgment call on it. And you think, well, where is the actual separation of power? Because there is none. Because if you're going to be prosecuted, then the person going to be prosecuting you is going to represent the state, and the judge represents the state. So how is that fair?
And the judges are political appointees and so on and so forth. Yeah, well, the levels of cronyism and jobbery, jobs for the boys and all the rest of that's going on in Irish institutions is legendary. That's another issue. It's another problem. But it's only part of the problem. But what we're trying to do is set up, we shouldn't have to do this because you see, we're all protected by the Constitution, and without getting into an argument about which Constitution is valid, we're coming at the problem from the point of view of an ordinary, everyday citizen who's going about their business and something goes wrong in their life. And then they go to the authorities for help and support, and for one reason or another, they find themselves being targeted. At the very least being neglected, but more likely being targeted, being abused, intimidated, and the like. And basically a complete and utter failing of service. And the usual common denominator in all this is that the person they're having the difficulty with in the first place is somebody who is connected. And so what's happening is the whole system rows in behind that connected person, regardless of their guilt or innocence.
Yeah.
And if you're working for any state body, you're almost guaranteed this veil of protection. You're immune to a certain extent to the same standards and laws as the rest of us. And of course, the penalty points scandal is a clear example of that. Although, in context of some of the issues we're dealing with, the penalty point scandal is relatively innocuous. It's sort of almost understandable. A few guards trying to do favours for people that they're friendly with, their colleagues, whatever. I mean, it's wrong, and it exposes just the tip of a very, very big and smelly iceberg. But compared to some of the other crimes we're uncovering and some of the acts, the appalling acts that are going on by people that we trust to run our justice system, Gardai, lawyers, judges, and ministers, for example, and the things that they are doing that are casually destroying people's lives. And we all know about the suicides. We all know about the broken families. We all know about the people in debt, losing their homes and all this. And a lot of this is being done literally, I mean casually. And the reason it's being done casually, without any sort of sense of conscience or guilt on the part of the perpetrators, is partly because the type of people who flourish in a system like we have here in Ireland are sociopaths and psychopaths.
Yeah.
Now, they don't have to be axe murderers, but they have this ability to distance themselves from the suffering of others.
Well, it's a psychopath is a lack of empathy. I mean, that's basically it, yeah.
Yeah. And so they don't suffer in the same way as we do. Now, I did a presentation about this last week in Dublin, explaining the various branches, if you like, of the tree, if you like, that come together to form this knot of criteria that has brought Ireland into this really drastic place. But the issue is this, is that it's going to be extremely hard, even for a well-organised group, let's say like the Hub, or even like the water protesters, who have got volume, they've got a lot of numbers and everything, even those groups, it's going to be nigh on impossible for them to take on and beat the system. What we are advocating is, never mind the system, go after the individual soldiers.
Yeah.
Never mind the army. You just focus, you as a soldier, focus on taking that soldier out in front of you. And once he's out of the way, go for the next one.
Yeah.
And as they begin to realize that there is some form of accountability for what they're doing, and like I said earlier in the program, there are various tactics we're focusing on. But the message has to be gotten across them, because these people are, in effect, they are predators. They're not, they see, like I say to people, look, when we did this little run for the last election, one of the questions I was asking people was, look at the type of people we have in the highest positions in the government at the moment, prior to the last election. I said, now look at some of their so-called personal qualities, and are they truthful? Are they diligent? Are they trustworthy? Can they be relied upon? Are they efficient? Are they good business managers, etc., etc.? And of course, invariably, we keep getting all these no answers. No, they're not trustworthy. No, they're not efficient. Yes, they are a bunch of fibbing, lying, conniving so-and-sos. Yes, they are in it for their own ill-gotten gains and so on, in many, many cases. So I would ask the question, I'd say, well, look, would you like someone like that? Would you allow someone like that to look after your children while you went away on holiday? No. Well, would you hand over your money and finances to someone like that and trust them to invest? No, I wouldn't. Would you marry someone like that? Absolutely not. Would you like to be stranded on a desert island with someone like that? And the answer invariably is no. And so, well, why on earth do we keep allowing them or electing them back into power? Or in the case of state institutions, why don't we have some form of safety net? Not safety net, wrong word. Some qualifying criteria that eliminates sociopaths and psychopaths from advancing to the top tiers in these institutions.
Well,
sorry, fire away.
I was just going to say, I think that one of the criteria for the politicians is that they have a kind of a business background. That's number one, because the way the system works at the moment, where politicians go in because the neighbours think he's great because he's brilliant, are getting holes fixed or helping them with their pension, and these TDs get put in, they've no business background whatsoever, and they get put in charge of, say, forestries or the health or whatever, and they've no knowledge of the subject. They rely on the civil servants, and I say serpents, they rely on the civil servants for all the information. So somebody who's an expert, say, in agriculture, if they were put in charge of that department, and then the civil servant tried to pull a fast one, well then chances are he might know about it, because he's a businessman and he knows that area. But if you take people who know nothing about say, the health service, and it's somebody that knows about transport, and you put them in charge of the health service and swap them around, how the hell does that work? I mean, that's incompetence. You don't, in a corporate company, you don't get the IT manager swapped over and now running the marketing department, and the marketing manager running the accounts department. It doesn't work that way. You get hired for the skill set you have, and you're in charge of that department. That's the way it works in the private sector. Why do they do that in politics? And you make these TDs who, most of the time, have no business background whatsoever. And, they might have had a little shop or something. I think I said a few years ago when Brian Cowan was in, 16 senior people around the table, only 2 of them had a business. One had a co-op, the other one had a bicycle repair shop. And they're running the country. I mean, that frightens me. We should have business people in there who know about business.
Well, if I could make an interjection there, Alan, I've got a very short little anecdote, which I think it's very powerful. 3 men walking along the road. The first one throws rubbish on the ground. The second one looks over it and says, and the third one picks it up. Now, the question I like to put to people is, which one of those people am I? Now, if you go back now to in other words, there's a certain type of person that's causing the problem. There's another very large group of people talking about it and pointing and wagging and saying, isn't that shocking, And unfortunately, there's very, very few of us that actually physically, rolling up our sleeves and getting in and doing something about it. But the point I want to make here is this, you just point out the fact that, let's say we've got a number of politicians who have proven themselves to be untrustworthy. Let's say they've been caught lying. Somebody like, let's say, Mr. Kenny, trying to cover up the business with the Garda Commissioner Callanan, and how he went, and whether this Mr. Purcell was sent over to fire him or not, and everything gets fogged in it. Well, that's a form of deception and fraud. It's certainly misconduct in public office, because these people should be held to standards. Now, I would argue, instead of us all saying, I know, isn't it shocking, awful and terrible, I'd say, right, hands up, who's going to take one of these private prosecutions and haul this guy in front of a district court? Now, if you imagine for a moment, you see, but the part of the problem is hardly anybody knows about this process. It's called the common informer process. Hardly anyone knows about it. But the authorities have, when I say shot themselves in the foot, I've got to give credit here to some of the Supreme Court judges who are undoubtedly, trying their best to be beacons of justice and fairness and all the rest of it. That's why supposedly we have a Supreme Court. But in a quite a comical irony, just before we started trying to use these processes to prosecute agents of the state, including a county registrar and a Garda sergeant, just before we started doing that, somebody else had tried to do it. He had tried to prosecute 2 bankers who he accused of having misled him in a meeting, and as a result he lost his business and so on. Now, I won't go into the details of that case other than to to leap forwards here to the fact that this matter went to the High Court and a ruling was made in 2013, and then that ruling was appealed by the bankers' attorneys and everything, and it went to the Supreme Court last year, on the last day of court last year. I think it was July the 29th last year, and the Supreme Court made a ruling, a 17-page ruling, which we have gone through with a fine-tooth comb, and we've plucked out exactly the important clauses in it. And to cut a long story short, the Supreme Court has now nailed this procedure down. They've absolutely encased it in solid rock. There is no argument, no legal argument in this country that can stop us moving forward with this process. And like I said before, it is free, it is straightforward, and it is relatively simple to do. Well, it is very simple to do, actually. Notwithstanding the fact, of course, that even though we've made something like 9 or 10 attempts at this now, and we're learning now all the tricks that are likely to be deployed against us. And I mean everything, literally. And I mean from judges saying to me, oh, there's been a Supreme Court ruling and I haven't read it yet. And I'll go, well, I can summarise it for you if you like, Judge, because I have. Oh, well, I know, I need to know that, and I'll adjourn this for another day. Other judges have literally got up and run, well, I say ran out of the courtrooms. I call it the dignified shuffle, or the undignified shuffle, where they clearly do not want to deal with these issues. And 1 minute we're told, oh, well, we said the court will rise. And then on another occasion it said, oh, he asked any other business. And I said, well, I told him we had some other business. Even when we notified the court clerks in advance that we're coming. We've had guards posted on the door to stop us getting into one court where we were due to issue these comments. Another courtroom tried to charge us €15 for each application when we told them we had 40 of them coming in. And all of this is against the law. It's all against their own rules. But we've had to go through these frustrating processes before we realised, you know what, they're all breaking their own rules. And the next thing that's going to happen, you see, this is where a little bit we have to think outside the box. So, for example, let's say a county registrar or a clerk in the court lies to us about something in order to stop us going ahead with a process on any given day. And this has happened. Now, what that county clerk, that clerk or the registrar isn't expecting is that they are going to be the recipient of the next one. We're going to prosecute them for misconduct in public office. Okay, and how successful have you been applying that? Well, as I just said, Alan, again, here's an example of how convoluted our system is. The first one we did was against a Garda sergeant in Castlebar for one of the well-publicised assaults on members of the public. And the judge in question, and ironically, again, it was just Judge Kevin Kilrain, I approached him with this paperwork, and I think we caught him on the hop. We caught him by surprise. And he allowed the paperwork to go through, which all of the other judges we've approached since should also have done. But on that occasion, he allowed it to go through, and then between them, there was tricks and deception. I was told one set of directions by the court service. When I followed them, I found out that the judge then picked on that, one of those issues to actually block me prosecuting the sergeant. And I said, well, he's been subpoenaed here today and he wasn't there. Move it on. I said, no, we're not prepared to move it on. And it was on that occasion that he eventually ran out of the courtroom. Okay. Because he had nowhere to go. But how successful have we been? Well, we've now last week in the district court in Dublin, I went into the Central Criminal Courts of Justice, and we basically ambushed a judge there because 3 other judges in succession over a 2-week period had literally either run out of the courts, turned their backs on us, just refused to talk to us. And we went in with this paperwork, and as we speak right now, on September the 2nd, I am due back in to the district court to prosecute 5 members of Garda Síochána, including an inspector, for a physical assault on myself, causing injury for which I'm going to have to have surgery, believe it or not. And this was an injury in the courts. And 2 members of the Garda Ombudsman Commission for conspiracy to interfere in the administration of justice, whereby they have deliberately failed to investigate obvious crimes by the guards, and the crimes included the assault, and then the guards going back into the courtroom afterwards, bringing members of the public outside and deleting evidence off their phones without their permission. Now, this is just something, that's what they did.
I agree with you doing that, because I think I said to you before when he talked to you, my sister actually brought a prosecution towards a member of the guard, a female member of the guards, for the unlawful arrest of my nephew. And she was made up a story because she realised she was wrong. And to cut a long story short, she won the case. And even though the solicitors were saying, oh, just let it lie, there's the Masonic Lodge coming in, oh, just leave it alone. My sister, fair play to her, said, no, I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to get that woman. What she did was wrong. It was an unlawful arrest. And my sister won the case. But I'll tell you, Stephen, we have loads of questions come in, and we want to get through these questions, because the chat room's hopping there with questions, and Steve has a whole list of them. So we'll fire over the questions to you, Steve.
Sure.
Yeah, a lot of interest on the chat room there, Stephen. I don't really know where to start. I'll just start with a question from Hammy, actually, I suppose. When we were talking about the jurisdiction earlier, Hammy says, jurisdiction not forfeit when in the EU is jurisdiction not forfeit when in the EU since they make 85% plus of the law?
Yeah, well, my answer to that is, first of all, I'm not a trained legal professional, and I'm not 100% sure about this, but interestingly, this came up at the presentation in Dublin last week. I was under the assumption that we are slowly ceding our sovereignty to Brussels, and that if the European Union has made a law, and just by virtue of the fact that it's a larger group of institutions, and it overshadows us, so to speak, certainly in the financial sense it does, that we will eventually become subject, and we'll have to get our laws in line with those. But again, please, I hope I don't spark off a side discussion on this issue here, because I'm not qualified really to answer that question comprehensively, other than that's my understanding, is that we are losing our sovereignty, and all our our judicial processes and our legal processes will eventually be subsumed into the European Union. There'll be some sort of alignment if it holds together. That is,
Yeah, and again later on, then Hammy was asking about the TTIP. He said, wait until TTIP comes in, everything to do with social justice will be impossible. And I have to say, we have seen some video footage of Luke Flanagan when he went in to read the document over there. I'm guessing everyone has possibly seen it now, where it was all done in secrecy. He wasn't allowed to memorise it, he wasn't allowed to write it down, and he wasn't allowed to speak of the contents of TTIP verbatim. He had to kind of, water it down and make up his own words. But again, the Irish media don't really want to talk about this. But I mean, have you heard about this TTIP, and what's your thoughts on it in relation to justice?
Yes, I have heard about it, Alan, and it's another example of the outrageous and audacious nature of big corporations and their legal arms, which again I describe as predators, parasites, psychopaths, sociopaths. That's the makeup of these people, and those that weren't born that way have sort of allowed themselves to be trained into that mindset. There can be, when someone tells me that you're not allowed to take this action or that action, to defend the health of your children, for example, because it might interfere in the profits or the future profits of a major international company. Well, if that's not getting our priorities wrong, if the life, health and well-being of our children is not the top priority, then there is something sadly wrong here. And probably we do need a revolution. If this type of thing is good, and if they get away with this, I think it's opening the floodgates.
Unfortunately, Stephen, in relation to the whole TTIP thing, I was talking to a chap the other day, and I just, in the course of conversation, we were talking about corporations, the big corporations, and how much power that they actually have. And I said to this chap, I said, well, you do know the world is run by big corporations. And I said, I mentioned TTIP, and he said, what's that? I haven't heard of it. And I said, no, you haven't, and you won't. I said, it's a little thing that's kind of going around here now at the moment, but it's going to have massive implications to absolutely everything here in Ireland and obviously across the world. And I gave him a quick 101 of my basic understanding on what I had heard through, say, Luke Flanagan. And this chap was looking back at me, and the look on his face said it all. And I said, do you think I'm joking? Yeah, and he's looking at me and he's going, are you not serious? And I said, no, I'm deadly serious. And again, unfortunately, now I don't have anything against people who have other pursuits and interests, you know, the likes of the people who would follow football passionately. Neither Alan or I are kind of those people, but, you know, there's a lot of people out there, and they have other interest, I suppose, that just keeps them distracted. Yeah, it just keeps them distracted from what's actually going on. And when I was talking to this guy, and I was, you know, saying, you know, think about your kids. I says, as a dad, as a father, you need to, you know, you want to do the best for your kids, and you want to give them the best. You want to give them the best education. You want to, and I said education, not indoctrination. And he says, well, yeah. I says, well, you know, you have to take more of an interest in what's actually going on. And I said, I used one of the quotes that I'd heard before, and I said, you know, it's not that you don't know what's going on. I said, it's that you don't know what's going on. Yes. And I said, there's a lot of people across Ireland like that, and that's where kind of Ben Gilroy was saying about the Gombian nation. And unfortunately, that's the way it is going. And I mean, in relation to the whole TTIP thing, as an example, you go back and you look at the whole Lisbon Treaty, you know, the whole referendum in relation to that. I have a funny feeling, and I hope I'm wrong, but, you know, human nature being what it is, I reckon TTIP will be brought in. The Irish people will be completely oblivious to it. They won't hear anything about it, and, you know, until it's too late. But then again, that kind of leads me to, in relation to the whole jurisdiction thing. If TTIP does come in, and all of a sudden it is global corporations who are running the whole show, you know, I'm sure we are still within our common law rights to say, if, you know, if they try to do something to us or fine us or take us to court or whatever, we can still turn around, can't we, and say no.
Well, we can say it, but I was just pooching there for part of the article in the Integrity Ireland SOS Guide. I'll just put a little plug in there for that. It's a manual we published in November last year, about 320 odd pages, you know, with forms and documents and everything in it. And it's a sort of a beginner's guide to understanding what's wrong with our legal and justice system and how to defend yourself. But one of the articles in the back of it talks about the what do you call it? The way that the number of corporations that are controlling the world, the volume of control, the amount of control they have over. Well, I'll see if I can find the article here itself, Alan. I'm sorry. I was sort of hoping it would just pop up for me here, but it hasn't. If I can find the article, I'll refer back to it in a few minutes. But while I'm at it, the second book that we're producing at the moment, which tentatively we're entitling it "Wake Up Ireland." And fight back, you know, in brackets, but Wake Up Ireland, and it's going to be a pocketbook designed to help people use the common and formal legislation efficiently, effectively, and without being blocked by judges and other officials who seem to be doing their best to stop us using this legislation the way it was designed, you know, which is a common person to walk in and take action in their own name. You know, like I said, Susan Denham herself said, after all, she said, it is the people who are sovereign and the guardians of the Constitution. So,
yeah. Quick one here. When you're called in the court, how would Stephen address the court when they call his name?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I know. Again, there are different. Well. Usually, you're told if you're speaking to the judge, you call him judge, him or her judge, you know?
Yeah.
But there's this vagueness between the court and the judge. You know, you're supposed to talk, when you address the judge, you're supposed to say, I need this court to do X, Y, and Z. You don't say, I need you to do this, you know. So he sort of morphs between being an individual judge and being the court. We have at times asked them to explain, is this a private court or a public court? And so far we haven't had a straight answer. There's usually a look of bewilderment on the face. I've had one judge say, what do you mean? And when he said, what do you mean? I had to sort of think to myself, well, I'm not 100% sure I know what I mean. But, we're supposed to be dealt with in public courts. But we know that the court service is a private corporation run for profit. So there's, again, this overlap between what it says in the Constitution and the reality on the ground. You know, we're supposed to go to the courts to have justice dispensed. But in fact, it's a conveyor belt to raise funds for the court service, and I mean many millions, in profits every year, and I suppose for the famous poor fund,
you have to talk about the Gardai benevolent fund. I used to see an awful lot of that happen in Kells, where if you actually paid money towards the Gardai benevolent fund, your sentence or the amount of money you have to pay could be reduced.
Yes, I know. It's some of it is comical, and I made the point that it's understandable, we Ireland, in Ireland, we've come from a tribal background, we're not a very, very big country, you'd know somebody in almost any town in the country if you just poke around a little bit. It's understandable that people would want to help each other. The problem arises when that help falls the wrong side of honesty, when other people are suffering because you're trying to do favours for someone or because you're covering up wrongdoing on the part of colleagues. That's when it becomes wrong. And it's become endemic in Irish institutions. And this is the sort of thing that we're trying to help people defend themselves against.
Yeah, totally agree. Steve has more questions there. Steve, over to you.
Yeah, Dave had a question / comment earlier, Stephen, and he was talking about educating people. If you had, let's say, you in your community or your parish, and someone else, obviously from Integrity Ireland, different parishes all around the country, and he said, assuming the community owns the church, the religious bodies could not object to somebody from, say, Integrity Ireland standing up at the church and making a small speech. He said a hat could be passed around to raise funds if need be. If one person in each community is then willing to represent Integrity Ireland and others, then large cross-community based networks can be built up in no time. Why not make use of the church time to enlighten and rebuild our communities to take their power back? Each parish representative can then give a weekly 5-minute update at the Mass as to what's really going on and coordinate the locals in helping them and you with your problems.
Well, that's a very interesting idea. And interestingly, when I was looking for a venue for the meeting last week, I did contact. I have a couple of friends in the Unitarian Church in Dublin. It's an old historic building there. I helped publish a couple of books for one of the reverends there and so on. But yes, it's a great idea. And I'd be very happy if that person contacted me personally, if they're interested in putting a little bit of effort into developing it. We're just on the cusp at the moment. I don't know if people are aware of this, but I was swamped. I was trying to manage the central website and the Facebook page, and it was just impossible. There are people who are waiting weeks for responses because we just couldn't get around to everyone. So we broadened our base a little bit, and we have now set up 5 regional Facebook pages: Ulster, Munster, Leinster, Connacht, and Dublin. And the idea behind this is it's a first step in a local platform, so that if people want to get in touch with Integrity Ireland, or they have ideas, or they want to support, or they need help, that they can come to those platforms first, and the administrators on each of those platforms will try and help them get organised locally. Now, at the same time, he was talking about educating people. I would love it. I would love to be invited to a church, to be, or to any venue, and I'm making myself available. I've said it before, we do this for free. We turn up, we've got PowerPoint presentations now. We've now got 2 books. When this one is finished, we'll have 2 books. One is a little bit on the expensive side, but this other one will sell for less than a tenner. And we've just got to get this person's right. We have to get the people educated. It's not a big step. It is when you start, but what we're doing is we're looking back at 5 years of accumulated frustration and experience trying to deal with an utterly compromised justice and legal system in this country. And we're coming to a point now where we believe now we have found the Achilles heel, the silver bullet,
Yeah.
And it is this common informer process. But I know now if somebody just types it up into the internet and goes off and tries to look at it, they're probably going to run into the same problems we've run into in the last 9 attempts we've made to try and get this across the line. The difference is that the 9 times that we've been obstructed, on every single occasion, it was when an authority figure has acted improperly. And for example, it was just today. Now I'll see if I can pull this up for you. Just today, I finished a statement, if you like. That the idea is that we would read this into the court, and if I may, this would take about a minute. If I could just read this into you. It's just a 1-page little statement, and the idea is that this statement would be attached to your information. And perhaps I should explain this, guys. If, for example, Alan, if I stole your bicycle, to keep it nice and simple, if I steal your bicycle and run away with it, and you get a photograph of me doing it, instead of going to the guards because you found out that the Garda sergeant is my uncle, all right? So you decide you won't bother going to the guards. You go straight into the district court and you filled out a simple 1-page form saying, Stephen Manning stole my bike. Here's the photograph, Judge. Now, the judge is obliged under legislation, precedent, and statute, and the Supreme Court and High Court rulings, he is obliged to write out a summons for Stephen Manning to come into court where you will prosecute me. Right? Now, that's how the process works. It's that simple. So you would then send me the summons. I would have to turn up. Now, if I'd stolen your bike and then done something terrible or injured you in the process, it would be a more serious offence and the DPP would take over. But it's really, really that simple. You just go in and you do this. Now, the problem has been is that when we've done this now in about 9 different courts with various different offences, some more serious than others, the judges, like I said, have even taken to running out the doors while we're talking. They've posted guards on the front saying only let people in one at a time to deal with their cases. They've tried to force us into lodging the paperwork beforehand so that they can come up with some excuse, or they write a private letter saying, oh, this can't be dealt with in this court, or something. And like I said, it's become comical. I'd even use terms like juvenile and childish, some of the behaviour of some of these judges in order to avoid dealing or being put in a position where they have to allow us to prosecute wrongdoers in the institution of the state. So I drew up this very short statement, and I basically say the idea is that this statement will be handed in with the common informer process, and it says, I hereby submit to the court this application for the issue of summonses as per the legislation, blah, 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 and as supported by the High Court ruling of such and such a date, 2015, and the Supreme Court ruling of July the 29th, 2016. I wish it noted that I have supplied the information on Form 15.3 in common language and have accompanied the same form with Form 15.1 for the issuance of a summons. I respectfully draw the attention of the court to the fact that according to common law legislation, going back to 1851, by the way, to long-standing precedent and to the aforesaid Superior Court rulings, that provided I have demonstrated clear evidence of a crime having been committed, that this court is obliged to issue that summons without further delay or prevarication, and I respectfully require that it does so. I further note that the court service has sent a comprehensive memo in 2015 to all district court judges advising them of the procedures and protocols to be followed, and that should there be any doubt or confusion on the part of this court as to how to proceed, that I hold in my possession details of the aforesaid legislation, the legal precedents and superior court rulings for the information of this court. And then finally we finish up with this bit, and this is possibly the most important part, and this is where people tend to balk. They think, oh my God, you can't say that to a judge, or you can't say that to a Garda superintendent, or you can't say that to the Minister for Justice. But this is exactly what we're trying to educate people. Have the courage to seize your rights and insist upon them. So this is the last part of it. We say, in the event that any officer of this court, and this includes guards, solicitors, or judges, in the event that any officer of this court attempts to improperly obstruct, delay, forestall, or otherwise prevent this matter from advancing today, that any such action may be interpreted as an attempt to pervert the course of justice, which is a criminal offence as against Section 7 of the Criminal Procedure Act 2010, which will result in the appropriate action being taken according to law. In short, what we're saying is, our paperwork is correct, Judge. You have got no excuse not to move ahead. Issue the goddamn summons, or else you'll be facing one of these as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's a fair comment. I agree with you on that. Something that I've said before on the show, Stephen, on a number of occasions, that we have to, and what you're doing is exactly what I suggested, we have to take the Gardai and the members of the judiciary, whoever they may be, who are trying to stifle the law, or trying to hoodwink us, or go against what the law states, then we have to have private prosecutions taken out with these people. That's the only way they're going to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all part of this. The idea is, like we were talking earlier about predators, and one of the slides we used in the presentation is of an eagle, and he's just about to pluck a rabbit off the snowy banks of a mountain, you know. And I explained to people, well, look, you know, this is a predator. It's his instinct is to view you as his next meal, you know. As we said, if you're on a desert island with one of these people, that's what they're thinking. You're going to be their next meal. You know, you don't want someone like that on the desert island with you. So it's no use if you're the little rabbit, you know, the eagle is going for you. It's no use begging and pleading and saying, oh, look, you know, I've got 10 other little rabbits to look after and all the rest of it. He doesn't care, you know. But there is one way. There is one way that you can get the message across, don't eat me. And that is to give him a right old punch in the beak, right? And he's going to think twice then about coming back to take a snatch at you. And we found a couple of slides where literally rabbits attack, in one case a leopard, in another case a panther or something. And we got these slides there to show we've got to fight back. And it's all about making it personally very embarrassing, very costly, and very painful for these rogue authority figures to continue abusing their positions of trust and responsibility. That's all. And I'm saying, you know, much as I would like at times the idea of bringing back the guillotine, you know, it's not necessary. If you're a decent father and you have children that are wayward, your objective is not to get revenge on them for the wrong things they've done. The objective is to correct the wrongdoing and make them into decent children, decent human beings. It's the same thing with some of these rogue authority figures. I have been in front of certain judges who on one day, one particular day, they would be ignorant, rude, irascible, unpredictable, shouting at us to shut up. And I mean, just basically an ill-mannered brute and a tyrant. And then, after perhaps we've written a letter to him or sent in a formal complaint about his conduct, and then we turn up back in front of him on another occasion, there is a noticeable change. It's a form of respect, I suppose. I'm not interested in these people liking me. I am just interested in them doing their jobs properly. As a matter of fact, I'd be worried if some of them liked me. You know, I hold it as a badge of honour, in fact, that the rogues don't like us and don't like what we're doing. That's to our credit. But
you're standing up to the bully. And that's really what it's about. The bully backs off when they realise that you're going to fight back. We have more questions for you, Stephen, so we'll pass over to Steve. Steve, I think you have a few more there that you have to ask.
Yes, we do. John is wondering, Stephen, has any of the mainstream media stations, I'm guessing she's obviously referring to either TV or radio, have they ever been in contact with you for an interview in relation to the good work that you do? Not exactly, but I did have a crack at the last election
But it was a symbolic crack more than anything else. Now, I was lucky enough, it was in the constituency over here. So, I was on the Vincent Brown show for, I got about a minute and a half to speak on that, and a couple of local radio interviews, but they were sort of obliged to interview me as a prospective candidate, and I knew that, and that's partly why I did it. But the short answer to this lady is no. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. Even when we send them information, which must tickle their interest, and which is very definitely of public interest, such as the time when we marched on Gardai headquarters and symbolically arrested Noreen O'Sullivan, to the dismay of the inspector present, who just didn't know what to do with himself. When we do things like, no, there is undoubtedly an active clampdown. Instructions have gone out. Now, again, I can't question the integrity of everybody who's working for RTE or for the various newspapers. But there are some notable connections, political connections between certain people. For example, one of the first commissioners of the Garda Ombudsman, and he's, to all intents and purposes, he seems like a decent man, a sincere man. But he was at one time the editor of the Sunday Times, for example, or the Irish Times, one or the other. And he then gets given a position as a sort of symbolic position as a Garda Ombudsman commissioner. And so on. And then there's the editor of one of the other major national newspapers, again, politically connected. So it's not going to take much for them to, they're told, like, we don't want this guy covered, the things he's saying are an embarrassment to the government. The last thing we want is to highlight them. And it's funny enough, it's one of our best weapons, is the fact that we are calling the bluff, of senior authority figures, ministers, judges, senior Gardaí management. We're calling their bluff. We're saying, look, you've done wrong. Not only have you done wrong, and am I telling you this in this letter, but I'm going to publish this letter, and I dare you to sue me for defamation or whatever you like, because I would love to thrash this out in the public realm. Some of the letters, and I've put a couple of them in the SOS guide, some of the letters I wrote to judges would make you roll your eyes in horror and think, oh my God, how is it that this guy is still not locked up? Well, the reason is because what I'm saying is true, and they know it's true, and the last thing they want to do is draw attention to it. So, to a certain extent, we're catching them by their own misdeeds. We have such a catalogue of misbehaviour by authority figures now that they must be pulling their hair out, wondering how on earth do we shut this Integrity Ireland project down without spilling the beans. They're not going to be able to do it. And all we're doing is we're going to keep on building our information databases, the information we have, educating people, until somebody in high office works out that it's going to be less painful, less costly, less expensive for them to actually do their jobs properly. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be very hard. I just think we need to get out them because they're fundamentally corrupt and they've no morals. So I just think they're going to have to be removed from office and new people put in with integrity, with morals, and focus on helping the people rather than helping the pockets and helping the corporates and the banks.
I agree. I'll tell you one example, guys. I don't know if I told you, I may have told you this last time I was on the radio, but about 3.5 years ago, when I was in the throes of a horrendous campaign of mostly anonymous harassment against me and my family, which stretched all the way from annoying phone calls, at 4, 5 in the morning, through to literally to thugs being hired to come and break my legs. In the throes of all this, I've been trying to contact Enda Kenny as my local constituency TD, and I'd gone through the various channels, and I'd gone through Charlie Flanagan and other people and whatever, and eventually I got to him, and basically he ducked and dived and refused. He didn't want to meet me. He didn't want to talk about this. And eventually I called up Paul Reynolds, the crime correspondent for RTE, and I told him that I had black and white evidence of some pretty senior, members of the Garda Síochána, including the Garda Commissioner, including Minister Shatter at the time, and certain other people. And I said I had black and white evidence of criminal activity by these people. And his amazing response was to advise me of the Defamation Act, and that I was in danger of. And I responded to him, and I said, Mr. Reynolds, I said, I thought you were an investigative crime correspondent, a reporter. I said, surely your first question of me should have been to ask to see the evidence. And I said, now I'd like you to go back to your contacts and colleagues in the corridors of power, and not only am I not worried about you telling them that I've told you all this, I would encourage you to go to them and then ask yourself why they don't want to do anything about it. You know, and that was it. I'm very disillusioned with the man. I later found out, I think his father is a chief superintendent or something like that, and he is embedded in RTE as the crime correspondent, specifically because he will, you know, he knows the right things to say. And if you watch his coverage, especially of Garda-related issues, you watch the coverage, and it's always, he's pro-Gardaí no matter what they do.
Well, it's all nepotism. You know, at the end of the day, that's what it is. We see it time and time again. Uncles, nephews, nieces, brothers, sisters, the whole shebang. You know, Steve has a few more questions for you. So,
sure.
Steve.
Yeah, Fastnet on the chat room there is wondering, can you ask Stephen, speaking of RTE, if there is a case against RTE for collusion with the state against the people?
I heard someone was talking about this. Somebody has certainly made that suggestion, and I've certainly seen some messages. We get an awful lot of messages copied into our email account. You know, it doesn't mean we read them all, but I advise members to do that so that there's a second copy of any emails should their computers go missing or anything like that. But I do know that there is a general air of mistrust, dissatisfaction, and even suspicion about the objectivity of RTE, and it does seem that they are leaning more and more into the role of being a sort of state-controlled media. As to being aware if there's any particular court action against them, I couldn't name one at the moment. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But I think you're definitely right, and people are beginning to see that on probably at least a weekly basis. When any topics for discussion do come up, the likes of, say, the water protesters, as one example, that RTE's coverage is kind of biased, and it is kind of the Gardaí are in the right, and these thugs and terrorists are in the wrong. You know, I mean, we have seen that, and not only that, but they want you to pay for the privilege of them telling you lies on a daily basis at 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock. You know, but thankfully people are starting to wake up. That's all I can say. Where are we going next? Joe Ducey. Any word on Joe Ducey? Says Joan.
Yes. Joe. Now, Joe and a couple of his colleagues in Ballina they've got their hands full. They've got their hands full dealing with Joe's situation. It's gotten really very complicated. But they've branched off, if you like, to focus on those issues in particular. Now, we continue to wish Joe and his friends well, and the same goes for anyone who is involved in trying to highlight injustice, in this country. But our active role in Joe's case at the moment, it's been reduced more to a supportive role. I'd be happy to put up information about Joe's case, but he's got his own squad of people, if you like, that have got their fingers on the pulse there. So I wouldn't feel qualified at the moment to give any specific details about his case. But as I understand it, other people such as Colin, for example, Colin and I are working closely together. He's a close friend of Joe's. So I'm getting the information back and have advised them that any time they want to use our Integrity Ireland platforms to get news out there, just fire it over, have at it, feel free. And, we will be in there to support Joe as and when there are any major cases coming up. But it's a real indictment again of the system, the way Joe is treated. He has a right to be angry at the way he's been treated. And, he did stand up to the guards in particular. And there are some bad eggs there, definitely, dealing with Joe's situation. I've met a couple of them myself. It's clear that they're not honest people, that there's another agenda, another objective here. And again, we look back at, the shootings in Dublin, and people being mown down in hotels and shot in the streets and all the rest of it. And then you look at the resources. I think it was 25 guards, the first raid on Joe's house a couple of years ago, in the middle of the night. And prior to that, they'd been creeping around the house outside, and they know this because, of course, they found a Garda baton, which we only recently discovered belonged to one of the detectives there, but it took 2.5 years to find out who owned that baton because of all this veil of secrecy. But there are more resources being used up, Garda resources, investigative. Our mail is being interfered with, our emails and our phone calls are being listened into, and all the rest. And you say, "Holy God!" I imagine if I was a decent policeman, certainly if I was a senior policeman, a Garda commissioner or the like, I'd be saying, "Wow, we just need more of these Integrity Ireland folks. Listen, guys, get out and make sure you make friends with them." I'd be telling the guards on the beat, "Go and make friends with these guys because." They're a great asset. They really want things to go right. But instead, we find ourselves under suspicion of being investigated. I've had a whole raft of vexatious summons deployed against me. I've had a lot of them thrown out already, but it still takes time and costs and energy. It's harassment. It's indirect harassment by the state. But it's very, very hard to put a name on it, because it's all done in the name of the DPP, and it's all done, But we all know it's the same thing they did with some of the water protesters, with Clare, Daly and Mick Wallace, we're teaching you a lesson. Don't you rock the boat, Sonny, because if you do, it's going to cost you.
Well, that's it.
What we're saying back, sorry guys, what we're sort of saying back, actually, this sums it up. When I was in front of the judge a couple of weeks ago, and he moved the case forwards, which he shouldn't have done, and I put it on the record, I said, I don't think you should be doing this, Judge, but we'll take what we can get today, and we'll be prepared for September the 2nd. I later found out that apparently we have been put in front of the single most notorious district court judge, who is so pro-establishment that when people hear that their case is going up in front of this guy, that they'll actually automatically judicially review it so that they get someone else, right? And the statement was made to me by a concerned person. Oh God, Stephen, they said, "Oh God, you've probably got the worst judge going." And they were looking sorry for me. And I said, "Don't feel sorry for me." I said, "Because he's probably got the worst lay litigant going." And
I would say, the whole thing about the status quo, they don't want people at the top, that golden circle, that clique that's going on. They don't want anything to change, as you know, and because it changes, all their power will be taken away. The funding and the corruption won't benefit them, and that's why. And it's only a handful of people at the top, and that's why I always say the hierarchical system doesn't work. Because one person like Michael Noonan controlling the many, and that's wrong, because it doesn't work, because of his ignorance or arrogance or his own self-agenda, which is causing the problem, and we need to remove these people from the top. We have about 15, 13 minutes left, Stephen, so we have a couple of more questions for you that we'll just quick fire over to you, okay?
Okay. Where will we go? There's a couple of comments to get out of the way as well, because I just thought I'd mention them. Lee on People's Internet Radio, when we were talking about the state, he said, the state, yes, another fiction to address. The state can't claim anything really now, can it? Because obviously it's a fiction. We had heard that one before. Vin also says, if people want to protest, if people are going to protest, outside RTE would be a better place than Leinster House to do so. I think there was a protest outside RTE a couple of years ago. I think people were encouraged in relation to the TV licence. They were encouraged to bring an old TV set and leave it in the grounds of RTE. I don't know how that went. Chris said, Stephen should be president, finally an Irish man with balls. So, thanks for that, Chris. And Joan says, does Stephen know any of the great work by Harry Ray, REA? Yes, I do. Just very briefly on Harry. I only
met Harry recently, and it was a relatively brief meeting. And but I started reading some of the stuff he did, and just for the education or for the information of the listeners there, the last case he was involved in, he took an action to inquire about some apparent irregularities in the Lisbon Treaty referendum. And it's a very simple issue. The issue was that the first time they got us to vote on it, it was called the 28th Amendment. And of course we voted no. And then in Europe, Angela Merkel said, right, Paddy, go back and do it right next time, you know. And the second time, it should have been called the 29th Amendment. Okay? It should have been. But it wasn't. It was called the 28th Amendment again. And very interestingly, when all the votes were sent in and the ballot box were counted, instead of being left overnight at the Gardai stations, which they're supposed to be done, I think, over the weekend, they were returned to the houses of the returning officers. Now, the returning officers are our dear friends, the county registrars and the sheriffs. Okay? So it's a multifaceted job that these men do. But apparently all the ballot boxes were returned. Now, it raises the suspicion, and I must emphasize this, I'm not making an allegation here, but it raises the suspicion that some of the old yes votes could have been incorporated in the second vote, and there would have been no way of distinguishing between them because they were all called the 28th Amendment. Now, God bless Harry for his work. He writes very well. He puts his arguments very cogently and articulately, and I see Harry as a major influence and a great example for those of us who are willing to, invest ourselves, our energy and our time and our intellect in trying to, to get justice for many people. Because, the fact is there aren't an awful lot of us who are going to be able to do things at the sort of level that Harry's doing it, myself, the Joe Duceys and Colum and, institutions like the Hub, and Paul Murphy with the water protesters and so on and so forth. You're going to get certain people that are going to take the initiative ahead of others. What we have to hope is that we inspire enough people to create a second tier, so that in the event that we run out of energy or something happens to us, that other people will step into the breach. And it's beginning to happen. And I would say that from what I know of Harry, which is not a great deal, but I did meet him briefly, and I've met a couple of friends. I read some of the things he's done. He strikes me as just exactly the type of person that Ireland needs at the moment, and a great spokesperson for the average person.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me in relation to the likes of yourself, Stephen, and a lot of the great people around the country is exactly what you said. If you run out of steam, because as you said earlier, and it is true, when your little analogy about the three people, the guy who drops the litter, we do have a lot of people dropping the litter. We have a hell of a lot of people who are quick to point out that that's the wrong thing to do, but we don't have a lot of people going around picking up the litter. Unfortunately, you're doing what you can, but you're only one man. The likes of Paul Murphy, Mick Wallace and Clare Daly, and all the plethora of people, throw Ben in there. There are a lot of people, but unfortunately it seems to be the same people doing the same thing over and over again. It's just, it seems like to me from this where I'm sitting here, that it's like the Irish people are like a nut that you're trying to crack, but you're not even making a dent in them. And, it just kind of seems like the same people over and over and over and over again. And it would be just fantastic if there was a way to really wake and shake and wake the people up. And, that idea about the church, I don't know if, going into the church and standing up on the pulpit will be the best idea. But I was just thinking earlier, you often see people like the Vincent de Paul standing outside church, handing out, collecting. But even church gates, I still can't believe it. In the small village where I live, on a Sunday morning, the church is jam-packed. The amount of cars outside it, people are still going to church, even though they've seen all the revelations about the church and how corrupt it was and what went on. People still go there. And I think that, even handing out leaflets at the church, that it could be a small step. That's something that I'm sure we and all the listeners would be willing to do.
Yes. If I could just make just a small little comment here, because It's something I worked out years and years ago. I very nearly became a priest myself at one point, and somewhat ironically, the more I learned about the true history of Christianity per se, because it wasn't Catholicism until the Reformation. You know, it was just the Christian. It was the Roman Christian Church, and there was the Byzantine Christian Church, and then Martin Luther and his Protestants came on the scene. You know, and all the rest of it. But the more and more I learned, the more questions were raised about the genuine integrity of certainly what we were being taught as children growing up. And, and there were a lot of, and then when I started raising the questions, very much like what I'm involved in now with Integrity Ireland, when I started raising specific questions, I was alienated and, I was marked, and, I was basically forced to abandon that, that ambition, that I might have a vocation. And as it's turned out, I think it was probably the right thing to do. But the point I'm trying to make is this, is that there's a strange thing that happens when an idea evolves into an institution. The idea can be wonderful and pure, and the idea of the Gospels and the idea of the mission of Christ as has been referred to us, to love one's neighbour, the golden rule, love one's neighbour, do unto others as you'd have them do to you, etc., etc. It's the same premise that is at the centre of all of the world's major religions. That idea is fantastic, but it's exactly the same problem we're facing here in Ireland. The idea and the philosophy and the community of the early church evolved into an institution, a global entity. And it has very flawed people staffing many of the tiers of that institution. And I think it's important, because I've been a very big critic of some of the worst abuses that were carried out, under the name of Christianity, in various forms, from whether it be from the Crusades all the way through to the paedophile priests and everything. I'd be a very big critic, of course I would, like any decent human being. But you also have to acknowledge the wonderful people that are involved and the things that they do. And it's very much the same. It's one of the main rules that I keep hammering home. And it's one of the things I ask anyone who becomes what I call a core member of Integrity Ireland, who's involved in decision making or, is turning up. I ask them, look at this here and ask yourself, you have to have unity. We can't be bickering. We can't be complaining about each other, But recognize the fact that once institutions start to build, that there is devolution might be a better word. It's not an advancement process. It's a process that is inhumane, and it basically says the institution comes first, and and those that govern it, and they forget the whole idea, because after all, the institutions of the Irish state are supposed to serve the people.
Well, yeah, supposed to serve them, but yeah, I think there's a personal interest there from the government. Stephen, we've reached that time. We'd just like to say a big thank you for coming on the show, and fantastic information there. Good luck with the book and getting the information out there to people. Again, we will, obviously in a few months' time, we'll get you back on again, find out what's going on. Or maybe now and again we might get you to, if you're up for it, just dropping in for 20 minutes, just giving us an update. And hopefully, and I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty confident that you won't be going into any timeshare apartment in Dublin, in Mountjoy. If you have a good solid case there, I'm sure you'd be able to argue the point.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure coming on, guys, and I appreciate the opportunity to share, and to encourage people. And again, it's not so much about joining Integrity Ireland per se, but we're just throwing out this. What we're trying to do is throw out an idea. The idea is more important. The idea is that we help each other, and by helping each other, we ultimately help ourselves, and we help our children, and somewhat ironically, we help these rogue characters. Yeah. To learn what the true value of life is.
Of course, totally. Well, I'm going to pass you off to Steve. Steve's going to get all your details off you, so people know where to find you. Steve.
Yeah, great information, Stephen. Great hit on the website there. Again, you think this happened the last time, but you've been invited to the fictitious pub crawl. which happens to guests who go down well. So you're invited to that. I do have your website there, integrityireland.ie, which I have posted up in the chat room. Is there any other links or information that you want to throw at us there before you go? And just maybe if you could incorporate into that, if you have any events or speaking engagements coming up, just as a few people looking to know if they can, catch you maybe on stage somewhere.
All right. Well, that's interesting because tentatively, see, the trouble is it's not written in stone yet, but we're looking at the 11th of June, which is a Saturday, in Tuam, at a venue to be decided. Tuam, County Galway. We're starting to run these presentations now, these educational presentations, and trying to use them also as a net to catch people and put them in touch with each other. Even if they don't maintain touch with Integrity Ireland Central, so to speak, they can stay in touch with each other, locally, and support each other.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's brilliant. I mean, we'll have to touch base with you on that to see if we can get you doing a presentation up there in Neck of the Woods or, somewhere around here, because I think information like that is very important. But again...
Where are you based, Steve?
We're based in County Meath.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So there's plenty of hotels that you could, book rooms in for, 2 or 3 hours just to, talk about what you're going through. And we might be able to help you with that. We might have a chat off air about that. Trying to give you an email or bell during the week and see what we can organise.
Okay. Oh, we're still on air now, Steve, are we?
Yeah, we're still on air, but we're going to go to a musical break, and so stay with us there for a minute, Stephen, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com and PeoplesInternetRadio.com.
Okay, and we're back. Just a little bit of AC/DC there for all you rockers. Good information from Stephen and Integrity Ireland. I did post the link to the website there, integrityireland.ie. A lot of great information on that. Definitely worthwhile checking out. We do know, and we've said it before, all this information, it can become information overload. But, just the bite-sized chunks, that's all we can say, is just, digest it in little bite-sized chunks.
And Stephen was on last year as well. So if you want to listen to part 1 of Stephen's story and what happened to him and the threats that were made to him, you can download or listen to the podcast from last year on the website. And that's interesting as well. Right, before the interview, we talked about a thing that's going around the internet at the moment. Everybody's talking about it, a lot of people are talking about it, called the Mandela effect. Okay? And this is the term used where a group of people will misremember the same detail, event or physicality. It is named after the instance in which a large group of people all shared the same memory that Nelson Mandela died prior to his actual death in 2013. Usually sometime in the 1980s. Now, the thing is, right, so it's something that you categorically can turn around and go, but I know that was that because of X, Y, and Z, alright? But when you go back and check it, it's not that, okay? And there's people out there think that there's been a dimensional shift or a change somewhere along the line. Everybody's texting me now, texts coming in. And basically, so the questions are, so before we did the interview, I gave you 4 questions, okay? Now, I'm going to put them to Steve, and Steve might know 3 of them, he might know 4 of them, okay? So the first one is, and this is an example of the Mandela effect, okay?
Yes.
Now, okay, so the first one is Snow White, alright, the witch goes up to the mirror and says what?
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Right, now, everybody that I know of,
yes,
says mirror, mirror on the wall. But if you go back and look in at the movie, it says magic mirror on the wall.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Right?
Right.
Now we all believe, and you could state that as a fact, that it's mirror, mirror on the wall. But if you look at the movie, it says magic mirror on the wall.
Should have been mirror, mirror. Sounds better.
Well, this is the talk. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a head wrecker, right?
Okay, so one wrong so far, yeah.
Right. What is... No, you're...
Is there a prize? What's the prize?
No, the thing is, you are right.
I'm right.
You are right.
I'm right, but I'm wrong.
You're right, but you're wrong, okay?
So I did win a prize, do I?
Right, not yet.
Okay.
Now, the 4 girls who... the TV programme where the 4 girls, and it's shot in New York, and their social lives... Sex.
I'm going to say Sex in the City.
Right?
Yeah.
Say that again.
Sex in the City.
Right. Now, again, you're right.
Yay!
But it's actually Sex and the City.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
So you look at the branding and the logos and the DVDs, right? It says Sex and the City.
Okay.
Right?
I did not know
and
that.
I thought it was Sex in the City.
Yeah.
Right?
I've never seen it anyway.
Okay, right. Okay. Now, Forrest Gump, he's on the bench and he says to the woman,
life is like a box of chocolates.
Right?
Yes.
Right? You're right. Life is like a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
But if you look at the movie,
Yeah.
it says life was like a box of chocolates.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I've seen the footage. I've been looking at this.
Life
during the week,
was
like a box of chocolates. But we're all convinced that he said life is like a box of chocolates.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Darth Vader, right? He says to Luke, blank, I am your father.
Okay. Feel like I'm on blankety blank now. Well, the obvious one is, Luke, I am not your father. I am your father.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
You're right again. But
Right.
it doesn't, if you look at the movie, it says, no, I am your father.
Stop.
See, it's a head wreck, isn't
Yeah.
it? Now, if you go on the internet, right, and you check this out, there's so many examples of this, it's unreal and frightening. And as I say, is it a psyop? Or is it something, has something happened? Some people think that because we have multiple versions of CERN, and, they say that CERN went ahead and activated and did what they did, and there's been a dimensional change or an energy change on the planet, and we're on kind of planet Earth 2 and not 1. And some people are saying they can find the old planet Earth. So I don't know. I really, it's all speculation at the moment. I don't have any evidence. But, so if you were listening to them quotes and you said the exact same thing regarding the Snow White, the 4 Girls in New York, Sex in the City and the City, Forrest Gump and Star Wars, that's a bit of a head wreck. It really is. And there's so many other examples around. And I'm not saying just TV programs. People are looking the likes of islands and countries and going, but that country wasn't there. It was there. And that island wasn't there. It never existed. And this is what's going on. So again, is it one of these kind of psyop things, or are we going mad? Or have we been so programmed? Did she originally say magic mirror on the wall and we were just being programmed through society? Everybody talks about mirror on the wall, so we all assumed it's mirror. So if you don't believe me, check out Snow White, Sex in the City, Star Wars, and obviously Forrest Gump, and listen to what's being said. And check out the Mandela Effect, just for a bit of fun. And then you'll see the people talking about it. It's a bit of a head wreck. It really is. So there you go.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right, so is there a prize? What do we win?
No prizes. But no, everybody says the same thing. If you ask your friends and family after the show and ask them the same questions, is it, in Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates, right? But people say life is like a box of chocolates, but it actually says life was like a box of chocolates.
Yeah, did he not proceed before that? Did he not just say, he was talking about his mother, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And I think you could be, you're most likely, yeah, right, because didn't he say something like, Mama used to say?
Yeah.
Mama used to
Yeah.
say. So it would make sense, life was like a box of chocolates.
Yeah, but everybody thinks life is like a box of chocolates. So it's a bit kind of, what has happened?
So you reckon it's the Mandela effect? The
whole idea of the Mandela effect is that people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in 1980s, right? They remember it being on the news. Nelson Mandela dies in prison in the 1980s, right? But when you think about it, they say obviously Nelson Mandela didn't die in the 80s. He died in 2013, right?
Yeah, because he was actually released from prison.
But again, the whole Mandela effect is people are factually saying, no, he did die. It was announced, and we have paperwork to say that he died and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's a fact that you believe to be true. But when you look back at it, you think, hang on a minute, and it could be something in your own personal life as well. So it's a bit of a strange one, all right. I really it's a bit of a strange, but it's something to go off and have a look at on YouTube and see what you think yourself. Just say something of interest.
If you like, we're not telling anyone that you have to do it.
No, if you like, but it's just kind of one of these head wreck things. Yeah. Right, next week on OYM, we're going to have Ken Smolin from the Irish Democratic Party. Now, Ken has he organised a meeting down in the Collection Hotel, which I went down to a few weeks ago, and he was planning to do and organise another one on Sunday the 12th, I believe, but all the plans have changed. There's dates being crossed, and then he changed it to Sunday the 19th, but Sunday the 19th is Father's Day, plus we have the Kells Road Race, plus there's some football stuff going on. So we said to Ken, you'll have to change it, Ken, again, because, if it's Father's Day and other things are going on, you're going to have a clash and people ain't going to turn up. So I think he's in the process. We can't take the call, unfortunately. It has to be very quick if we do. Go on, Steve.
Okay, are we taking it or are we...
Go on. We'll take the call. Go on, very quickly. Oh, it's gone off.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, guys, but it's 4 minutes to 9 o'clock, and we're going to have to sign off shortly and pass it off to PIR. I would have loved him to take the call because we haven't tested the new phones.
No, we haven't. Although, if after we cleared it, so...
Right, okay. Okay. We got the answer machine kicking in there.
Okay, the answer machine kicked in.
Yeah, that's why we didn't get it.
Right.
And there's something about the sound being muffled there. Well, thanks to the listener phoning in there. So there you go. So what's planned for the week for you? Are you busy or what's happening?
You know what? We'll see what happens tomorrow. I do have a lot of video footage that I have to catch up on, links that we were kind of looking at, and links from last week's show that I did kind of say that I was going to get through, but I haven't actually got through them yet. So I'll be kind of playing catch up. What about yourself?
Nothing planned at the moment. The kids are off school, obviously. So we've 3 months of being 3 months of being the entertainment manager. So I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, actually, I forgot about that now because obviously mine aren't off. Well, one of mine is off, but the other one isn't. So 3 months. Wow.
3 months. So that's the entertainment manager. I'll be pulling my hair out within the first month. So we'll have to see what happens. Of course, lack of funds. There's not much you can really do because everything costs money these days, even petrol to get to places. So we don't have a lot in the locality. So
Yeah, you can't even go walking or hiking, and take in the fresh air because by the time you come back, your lungs will be congested with whatever the hell has been getting sprayed up there.
But the kids aren't into that. They just, it's all Xbox and, and all that kind of PlayStation and stuff like that. To go out and say, why don't you go out on your bike and get a bit of fresh air? Why?
Yeah, as people used to say, here, do you know what we used to play with years and years and years ago? What? Outdoors.
Yeah, that's it. We played with our imagination. Because we couldn't afford the toys at the time. Okay, well, we're going to let you go. We're going to pass off to Vin. I think Vin's going to be doing a show tonight on
learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness.
Yeah, that's the Irish nation in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to get Ben on to talk about this gone-being attitude because we see it all the time. I mean, it just has to change. But anyway, for myself, Alan James, take it easy, have a safe week, and if there's any news, send it over to us and let us know. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, and for myself, Stephen George, it's been a fantastic show, even though the studio was like an oven where we are here. But there we go. Right, okay, we shall talk to you again in a week's time. So until then, take care. Bye-bye.
Open your mind.